You're listening to The Jam here on DZRJ Radio, the voice of the Philippines, 8:10 a.m. on your radio dial. This week, on June 12th, during the Russia's Independence Day, it was hit by a massive wave of government protests. It was the largest wave of anti-government protests it had seen in years. Thousands of people in over 100 cities illegally demonstrating against the Putin government. Police arrested over 1,000 in both Moscow and St. Petersburg, and in the middle of it all was this man who hopes to be the next president of Russia, Alexei Navalny. Alex is no stranger to being arrested. In the last 7 years, he has been arrested or detained or prosecuted more times than he can count. Last Monday, in this enormous protest, the court slapped him with another 30 days in prison for organizing an unauthorized protest. In Russia, all protests must be state approved. So if you're planning to protest against the state, well, then the chances of getting approved are pretty darn slim. But Navalny doesn't seem to be bothered much by getting arrested again. He made a statement complaining that his sentence meant that he was going to miss the upcoming Depeche Mode concert. Now, I have talked about him before here on The Jam, and he has a group that we've talked about called the Anti-Corruption Foundation. He has a blog, he has a YouTube channel, and produces corruption videos, and is without a doubt currently the most popular candidate in Russia, next to Vladimir Putin, and also is the only one still alive. But even with all this illegal rallies and protests, the most interesting thing is his movies. His latest movie was about the Prime Minister of Russia, who has amassed many luxury properties through donations to a long list of the Prime Minister's charity funds. This film has inspired tens of thousands to join his anti-government protests. Some say last week's was somewhere around 60,000, which is a lot considering that you can end up in jail or beaten if you're caught protesting. And this, of course, is the biggest obstacle for Navalny. He's trying to hold legal protest for his followers, but it's near impossible. So he's subjecting his people coming to rallies, which are mostly young and students, to the possibility of getting arrested or doing some jail time. He considers himself a refuge for all people who do not feel that they are politically represented anymore in the Putin regime. He's considered the only hope for some ever getting out from under the iron fist of Putin, who they say will never leave office. They believe even if Navalny were to win the election, that Putin will still never give up power. But they are willing to sacrifice their freedom just to try. Some have thought that maybe Navalny was some kind of secret connection with the Kremlin, that maybe someone very powerful wants to overthrow Putin. I mean, how else is Navalny still alive? And how was he able to sidestep being thrown in a Russian prison for 20 years? The trick for Navalny is how to get the rich elites to stop supporting Putin. They all currently support him because everyone has seen what happens when you don't support him. And who would stick out their neck publicly, oppose him, and probably get the chance of losing your neck? Currently, the approval rating of Putin is 81%. And this is in a country where the majority of the country is below the world's poverty mark, and where corruption is spread far and wide across the country. The people support Putin because they have no alternative, which is why Navalny has fastly becoming the most popular and most dangerous possibility against the current government party. But even if he runs, still Russia is not known for its fair and free elections. In the last election, 100,000 people came out and protested the falsified parliamentary elections, and this was followed by months of protests with tens of thousands coming out against Putin. It was condemnation from world leaders, but the power of Putin is just too great. After the election, they brought up charges against Navalny on bizarre and convoluted acts of defrauding the state timber company. They convicted him of embezzlement. However, he was given 5 years on a suspended sentence. But what this means is that now he's completely barred from ever running for presidency under the rules of the Constitution. He appealed the ruling, and eventually the Supreme Court ordered that he be retried following a European Court for Human Rights ruling that he had not been given a fair trial. However, the retrial was with the same court. They found him guilty again in exactly the same way. The ironic thing here is that he is fighting against corruption in the government, and he is being found guilty of corruption from the government. The government that he has proven time and time again is corrupt. So, could Navalny ever get to be president of Russia? Even if we take away the voter fraud, intimidation, all the other election interferences that have been the staple of Russian elections, there still remains the fact that Putin has every agency, media, military, police at his service. They were able to upend the US election. Just think how they could manipulate the Russian votes. Moreover, it looks like Navalny will certainly not be on the ballot for the upcoming election. This past Wednesday, the Russian Election Commission even confirmed in citing the fact that he was convicted of a crime barring him from ever running. But does anyone think that Navalny will drop out or quit after what we saw last week? He seems to have even more support now than ever. And he seems more determined than ever to make Russia a normal country. Most of all, the prominent Russian critics of Putin have either been killed or forced into exile, but somehow this Russian won't go away. He remains the best hope of the people of Russia looking for a way out of the Putin government that has ruled throughout most of their lives. At this point, it seems nearly impossible that there could ever be a change in the government of Russia in our lifetime. However, in politics around the world these days, the impossible just keeps getting more and more probable. This is Lecain here on The Jam. It's Sunday night here in Manila.